Hello, this is Reverend Dr. Christine Tata preaching on the 22nd Sunday after Pentecost for Chewelah United Church of Christ and the First Congregational Church in Colville United Church of Christ. My sermon is called, Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Tunes? And I hope you'll see why when we get going. First, what you should know is that in the order of service of the full service, this sermon comes right after we have sung A Mighty Fortress is Our God. But here I must also read the scriptures for you. And I begin with the scripture from the Gospel according to Luke in the 20th chapter. Some Sadducees, those who say there is no resurrection, came to Jesus and asked him a question. Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife but no children, the man shall marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman, died childless. Then the second and the third married her, and so in the same way all 7 died childless. Finally, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had married her. Jesus said to them, Those who belong to this age marry and are given to marriage, but those who are considered worthy of a place in that age and in the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. Indeed, they cannot die any more, because they are like angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection. And the fact that the dead are raised, Moses himself showed in the story about the bush, where he speaks of the Lord as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, God is God not of the dead, but of the living. For to God, all of them are alive. I guess he told them. Now, this is the sermon scripture I will read for you. Psalm 98. Sing to God a new song, for God has done marvelous things. With God's right hand and holy arm, the victory has been won. God has made known the victory and shown their righteousness openly in the sight of the nations. God remembers mercy and faithfulness to the house of Israel, and all the ends of the earth have seen the victory of our God. Shout with joy to God, all you lands. Lift up your voice, rejoice and sing. Sing to God with the harp and the voice of song, with trumpets and the sound of the horn. Shout with joy before God, the ruler of all. Let the sea roar and all that is in it, the lands and those who dwell therein. Let the rivers clap their hands, and let the hills ring out with joy before God. When God comes to judge the earth, in righteousness shall God judge the world and the peoples with equity. Here ends the reading of the word, to our wisdom and understanding. Well, I want to start with a question. Why is the alphabet in that order? Is it because of the song? Well, it's not really a question I asked. Stephen Wright asked that question years ago, but it's a good question, because how else would we have learned that sequence of unrelated, strange symbols without the song? Do you know what I mean? The music itself helped make us know this. So I'm talking today about music and words and how they go together, and then sometimes a little bit about silence, although not so much about silence because we don't get that much of it these days. More specifically, I want to talk about how we have music and words and how we use them and abuse them in our worship services. The thing is, the connection between words and music in religious services goes back as far as we care to go. The hymnals that our churches use are full of words as well as music. They've been used as teaching tools for decades, centuries. That's why they're just so packed with things to say. 5 verses, 6 verses. They have been used to teach the laity what the doctrines were. Now we sort of know that, and that's why a lot of times we just call for, verses 1, 3, and 5. Many, many great hymns date back for centuries. We know that many great hymns were written during the Reformation. Here's a pop quiz. Do you know who wrote A Mighty Fortress Is Our God? If you do, then you're wise in the way of hymnals. If you said Martin Luther, you were correct. Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, stop it. Martin Luther in the 16th century. It was Martin Luther who made that racy sounding statement, why should the devil have all the good tunes? I know it made it sound like we were going to talk about, I don't know, Elvis Presley or something. No, but why should the devil have all the good tunes? He wanted to know, so he wrote a couple of them. But he said that because every time church music evolved, every time a musician added a nuance or a new way to write something, the church fathers typically just went nuts, and they didn't like it, and they condemned it, and they thought it was frivolous or something like that. Does that sound familiar? It should, because music has always moved the mark just a little bit when it comes to the sacred. But even before the Reformation, we had plenty of music and plenty of changes. We've had centuries of musical responses from the chants of our liturgies in the Catholic and Jewish traditions, the Psalms, all through the Hebrew Bible, as you know. They were all meant to be sung, sometimes with instrumentation, right? It'll say that at the top of the song. And nobody really knows what that mysterious word Selah means in the Psalms. Selah, it comes out every now and then. My personal opinion is that it means something like, tambourines, take 5, right? Selah, take 5. Something like that. But that's only a guess. And we've only talked about the Christian tradition. There are multiple varieties of chanting, intonation in the Buddhist and Hindu meditations. There's the call to prayer 5 times a day by the muezzins in the Muslim countries. Native American rituals always have a song, a different kind of music playing. Pagan and earth-centered theologies and practices in nearly all times and places. Have I left anything out? I don't think so. Quakers, perhaps. That's about it. That's all I can think of. Quakers rely on an almost musical silence for their meditations. But anyway, music and worship. Why? We all know that music has a wild, unpredictable, emotional power. It goes right past our logical brain into our hearts. And it helps us do and become more, I suppose, of what we want to be. It does have power. It is a fact that if I'm playing Aretha Franklin singing Respect in the car, I probably will be speeding. That's a fact. But it's also a fact that if I'm hearing something marvelously played or sung in church, I'm sure that there is a God, more sure than ever anywhere. But we liberal religious folk, we're sometimes suspicious of this expansive emotional power. It seems to be at odds with our cherished, hard-won, logical and rational belief systems. It also is true that the kind of expressive, worship that I'm talking about with music can also be found in places with some theologies that we would not really subscribe to. And that frightens us. Makes us suspicious. Maybe it should. I don't know, though. You can use alcohol to get drunk on, or you can use it to cleanse a wound. Same substance, two different uses. Music can ease our anxiety when it's time for prayer. It can lift our spirits when they need it. Can help us feel nostalgia for times and places gone by. Can also give us hope for the future when we've mastered a challenging song. We know that churches are wondering right now what to do. We're not the only one. We're not the only church pondering, what do we do if we're wanting to become more growth-oriented or seeker-oriented? A traditional church is content to let the music be what it is and please its incumbent members for fear of losing them. Renewal churches, they're called, are trying to lure baby boomers back with what they call contemporary services, guitars and world music and variety, a little bit of rhythm now and then. But seeker-oriented churches, they go wherever they need to go to invite the truly unchurched, the kids that we baby boomers didn't bring to church at all, including myself. Well, you have to go there to understand those churches. You have to go there. It's hard to describe. They don't hold a hymnal. They don't have to hold a hymnal. They don't have to. They can learn the choruses right away. They're just easy to learn. And the music doesn't stop on a dime. It just goes until people are done singing. So I'm a music snob, and I'll call us out. I'll just go ahead and call us all out. Is that music quality music? Probably not, unless you define quality as music people love to sing. And in that case, it's pretty good music. We learn music from words first thing. That's the first sort our brain makes when we hear a sound. There's science to show us that. And way back in history, some scholars believe we didn't learn language because we wanted to name a rock. Language evolved, they're thinking, out of musical sounds we were making to call to one another in the night across, to say, we're here, we're not alone. And maybe from there it was a short step to seeing the night sky and being awed by it in a pre-verbal way, in a musical way. Anyway, from the beginning of historical church, music has continuously developed and changed, from the simplest of psalms to the double choir of numbers to the Christian rock to the folk praise, the new hymns and the hymnal. And all of it might not be to your taste, but the devil does not have the good tunes. I can say with confidence. Now, there was a little kerfuffle in the 11th century when a certain monk named Father Guido, honestly, was teaching music with his new notation system, and he refused to teach a certain interval that he called Diabolus de Musica because he thought it was such an evil sound. Seriously, it's a tritone. It's C and F sharp together. That'd be one example. It's the same kind of sound they make on a soap opera when things aren't going well. Or I think it's the same sound that sirens have in Europe. How awful that is. Anyway, he wouldn't teach it. And he called it the diabolical. Anyway, it was never actually banned. as being the devil in the music. And kids, the devil has no tunes at all of his own. The devil is probably stuck singing the theme song to Mr. Ed all the time, most likely. So we don't have to be afraid. There's no music that cannot be made to do some kind of God's work, some kind of way. Our job, I think, is just to praise the God of our understanding for the goodness of music in our lives, and to sing to that God how grateful we are. And finally, one last thing to remember. This is from the Talmud, from the Talmudic commentary. You will only sing in heaven as loudly as you sing in this life. So decide, here and now. Selah.